India is all set to launch a massive exercise from the 7th of May to repatriate stranded Indians abroad. The massive exercise would involve Navy ships and a public carrier. In the first 14 days, the government intends to bring back 14,000 people who have been stranded across the globe because of the coronavirus. This massive exercise will start on the 7th of May. India intends to bring back 4,350 people from the Gulf countries in the first week of the evacuation, 2,100 Indians from the United States, 1,750 from the United Kingdom and Malaysia, 1,400 from Bangladesh, and 1,250 from Singapore and the Philippines would be evacuated. India will operate 64 flights and globally evacuate 14,000 Indians. Maximum flights will be from Kerala, which stands at 15, followed by the state of Tamil Nadu, and NCR, which stands at 11. On the other hand, the Navy has decided to deploy 3 ships, the INS Jaleshwar, the INS Magar, and the INS Shardul. They will be deployed for operations. The INS Jaleshwar is Indian Navy's largest amphibious platform, which can carry 1,000 troops, and which currently, with the current social distancing norms in place, it would be able to carry only 700 people. Now, this is going to be the largest repatriation mission of the Indian government. India will be repatriating 192,000 people in the first phase of this mammoth exercise. Now, sources told WION that data collection is ongoing in most missions, with what we are looking at, dates for evacuations and making all necessary arrangements accordingly. Now, the facilitation will only be on compelling grounds and will be done via planes and naval ships. This will take place on a payment basis, and non-scheduled commercial flights would be arranged for air travel. During the process of repatriation, all health protocols like social distancing norms will have to be followed. The evacuees, after reaching the destinations, would have to register on the Indian government's Argoya Setu app, which has been developed to alert about COVID-19 crisis and alerts regarding it. Now, after being medically screened, they will be quarantined for 14 days in a hospital or an institutional quarantine on payment basis by the state governments, which will be followed by COVID-19 testing at the end of the given period. Now, we are being joined by our principal diplomatic correspondent, Siddhant Sibal, live from New Delhi for more on this. Good evening to you, Siddhant. India all set to launch this massive exercise from the 7th to repatriate stranded Indians abroad. What is the latest?
Well, yes, Alison, India is all set to launch a mammoth task of repatriation. In fact, a mammoth will be an understatement when it comes to this entire project or process, which will be started from 7th of this month in a phased manner, and initially in a week's time, which starts from 7th of May, we are looking at numbers up to 14,800 people being evacuated across the world from 12 countries, brought to India through 64 flights. Maximum, of course, will be going to the state of Kerala, and the focus in the first phase of evacuation will be the Gulf region, where from around 5 countries, India is expected to get up to 4,000 people, in fact more than 4,000 people in 25 flights that will come from that part of the world. Remember, when it comes to the Gulf, India has substantial people living there. Most of them are blue-collared workers, and they have been calling the Indian government for the early repatriation, and that is why the process, of course, has started with focus on the Gulf region. But by and large, India is also getting a lot of people from Southeast Asian nations, from Singapore, from Philippines and Malaysia. These are the focus countries, but when it comes to the neighborhood, 2 countries will be the top priority. One is Bangladesh, another is Maldives. When it comes to Maldives, it is interesting because India will be using its naval ships, INS Shardul, INS Magar, and INS Jaleshwar, which is the largest amphibian platform which India has, to get back approximately 800 of its personnel from the country. And of course, we know that the fares are also out, as you told our viewers, that it will be a paid facilitation. For example, when it comes to London-Mumbai flight, the cost of the fare will be around 50,000 rupees. So clearly the modalities have been put in place, and now the process is about to start. Of course, it's a mammoth project, and of course we know the numbers are going to shoot up. More than 2 lakh people, 2 lakh stranded Indians across the world are expected to come back to India. We know before the lockdown there were evacuations from countries like Japan, China and Italy, and of course Iran as well. The numbers that time were around 2,500. This time it's more than 2 lakhs.
Right, and lots of protocol to follow. After being medically screened, the repatriated citizens will then be quarantined for 14 days in various institutions, hospitals. Then, of course, they'll have to be tested for COVID-19. This in itself is a huge undertaking.
Well, yes, usual norms have to be followed. Social distancing, the health protocols which have been put in place. As you told our viewers, when it comes to their arrival, there will be quarantine. We already know the process like, because India had taken a drive to get back its citizens. As I've told you, 2,500 of its citizens from Wuhan, Japan, Iran and Italy, they were kept at various quarantine centers which were manned by the Indian Army and by the ITBP. Of course, this time around the quarantine services will be paid services. They have to pay for that as well, and after the 14-day period they can of course go back to their respective houses. But by and large, necessary precautions are something that the Indian government is focusing on, and that is why the Arogya Setu app, which helps people give all the information, which is of course built by the Indian government, has been talked about. And whenever these people land here in India on the day one itself, we are expecting somewhere between 1,500 to 2,000 people to land on the 7th of May when the first phase of evacuation starts. These people have to put in place these apps, Arogya Setu app, so that the informations are readily available. But by and large, when it comes to the entire process, the protocols, these are already in place, and these are something that state governments need to follow, because we know that it was a consultation process which involved the states, the MHA, the MEA, and of course other key ministries as well.
Siddhant, thank you very much for that report. That's our principal diplomatic correspondent, Siddhant Sybil, bringing us the latest on COVID-19 repatriation in India.